descriptive job title at all. I do front-end development all the way, HTML and CSS all the way up to JavaScript, and sort of blur the lines of some of the back-end developers with JavaScript. I do wireframing, prototyping, I facilitate client meetings. I run and facilitate projects that run from Greenfield all the way up into Legacy and doing refactors and things like that. So it's kind of a grab bag term. Pretty much I do everything that the back-end developers won't do. So user experience. How many people are a little bit more familiar with what UX is versus wireframing? Okay. So how many, so yeah, this is, forgot about this. How many people know what a UX unicorn is? Nobody. All right. So the reason that UX unicorn came up as a term is there are many things that make up UX. Many terms. Many conflicting ways of showing what UX might be. Many diagrams of different strategies for doing things, different disciplines in different areas, what belongs in what category. Unicorn feels a little too cute for me. I like the UX Hydra. You've got a bunch of heads, you cut one off, 5 more pop up. Every time you cut off another one, 5 more pop up. Every time a developer says they're not going to do something, it falls in your bucket because you end up having a whole bunch of skills that no one else really understands. So I'm going to teach you how to wireframe, which is sort of a dip your toes in the side of this, this part of development and building a product. So hopefully you can look at user experience designers when you're doing the roles that you're doing in the future, and you don't see something like a pretty unicorn who just does some fancy things. So basically, not like a boss, but just somebody who does wireframing. So the basic idea of wireframing is it's a blueprint. That's the basic idea. It's a plan. That's all it is. And maybe not necessarily this fancy of a blueprint, because this gets kind of intimidating. Who's going to build the bathroom, really? But this is the basic idea of wireframing. We have boxes. That's it. It's just boxes that have an essential label for what lives in those boxes, and you rearrange them depending on what you want in your UI. So the non-jargony definition of it's just a plan for how you put your interface together. But don't be fooled, it's not that easy. And it's also not that complicated. So the obligatory quote in any presentation is pretty relevant here. The idea behind wireframing is it's a lot cheaper to do something on paper 30, 40, 50 times than it is to start getting into development and get up against a roadblock and realize you can't do it and have to start over. That's the essential idea. And Frank Lloyd Wright said it perfectly, which is a cornerstone of what user experience actually is. Do things and have a plan for doing those things so that you don't have to get it so far and have to start over. So why do we wireframe? Knowing that it's a plan, knowing that you should have some sort of trajectory in place that is cheap and efficient, why do we do it? Basically so we don't piss off our developers, or our clients, or whoever. But the basic idea is because you want to answer a bunch of questions. What kind of questions? Yeah, you have a plan, that's all well good and everything, but what kind of questions are you actually going to ask? You're going to ask some key things. How will the pieces of your application be put together? It's a relevant question. You might have an idea in your head right now of the thing that you're supposed to be building today. What will actually be displayed in those pieces that you're going to be building? How is that information organized in that interface? How will the interface actually work? What sorts of behaviors will exist? What sort of feedback will come out of your system? What is the user supposed to be clicking on or swiping between or choosing when they're moving through an interface? And how does the actual application interact with the user? How does it behave back? What do errors look like? How do you prevent errors? Are there actionables on your errors? Is there validation that prevents any sort of problems moving through an interface? How do you go back when you've committed a problem in an interface? Sold? Sound good? Perfect. All right. So the very first thing you do when you're deciding that you're going to do any sort of wireframing is you pick up a pen or a whiteboard marker or whatever you have near you that you can draw with, and you grab some paper. And that's as complicated as it needs to get in our software, and I'll go over it later, but it is pen and paper for the most part. So you pick your media, which is a box. Pretty straightforward. You have web. We can all essentially remember what shape each of the things are we're going to build things in. And you start building some containers. This is very juvenile, I realize, but it's still just boxes. anyone feeling like drawing is intimidating or you can't do this or it's beyond you or anything like that, or that it's unimportant. But the fact is this is how you break down an application. And this is where it starts to get a little bit more fun. You start designing design patterns around what things in your wireframes will look like. You have basic things here, like what does a picture look like? It's a square with an X in it. You'll start seeing these design patterns around the internet too. People will come up with some common design patterns for how they draw things so that other people looking at their wireframes are familiar with what it was they're talking about. Same thing with like drop shadows like this, just a bunch of lines. If you're really interested in wireframing out material design, which gets a little crazy. But you have calendars. These things should look familiar to you. You've got forms. It's pretty basic things. It's just lines and boxes. Every now and then, if you're getting crazy, there'll be some circles because icons are often circle, sort of. But that's as complicated as wireframing really gets as far as the nitty-gritty what you're going to be drawing. So some terminology that you'll hear in user experience. And if you have a good HCI course, maybe you'll hear some terms like this that actually have some relevancy for what it is you're doing. So there's some things that you'll hear, like card sorting. Is anyone familiar with card sorting? You should be familiar with card sorting if you took HCI. Card sorting, and this will be useful in a number of areas. The basic idea is you have, say, a whole bunch of stickies in front of you, or index cards, which is where the term came from. You write down a bunch of high-level things that need to exist in your interface. Say, for example, pages on a site. You put them all on pieces of paper and you rearrange them in a way where they're categorized. Now you have a menu. Now you know how your menu should be put together. Or say you are building something or you're fixing something up that's a legacy site and the navigation's gotten completely out of control. I'm sure we've all been on these websites. Someone has not taken all of those meta areas and resorted them so that they're categorized in a way that makes sense. This is the use of card sorting. High fidelity basically just means lots of detail. You have a lot that you can see in it. There's very little left up to the imagination. Low fidelity, obviously the opposite. It's meant to look at the meta of something without any of the detail getting in the way of what you're looking at. Rapid prototyping is the idea that you're going to do something and throw it out. This is incredibly difficult for people when they're first getting started because you are brilliant. You have great ideas. You don't want to throw it out because this took a lot of work to come up with this idea. Why would you throw it out? No. That's why we use stickies and Sharpies. You make a mistake on a sticky, you're throwing it out. That's rapid prototyping. Same thing with development. You do something quickly, you get it in front of whoever's going to be using it, you validate it or invalidate it, and you throw it out. You start over. Or you iterate on pieces of it that didn't make sense. That's rapid prototyping. Taxonomy gets a little bit more complicated in it's a system that is used to identify the content types and how they relate to each other in terms of how you're moving through an application. We've all seen things like sitemaps. There's not one linear way to move through a site. There are links between them, and they have to make sense. It's a pattern that you're establishing when you're building your application so that moving forward, any additional parts that you're adding to your application live in a place that makes sense, and you're not just randomly adding it. User-centered design. This is the key behind all of user experience. The basic idea is no matter what it is any of you are building, or what you're hacking today, or what you're working on in the future, a human's using it. The chances of a machine using, and only a machine ever using what you're building, very small right now, until the robots take over, okay? Then maybe we'll change the term. But the idea is humans are going to use this. Think of the people. Think of the situation they're going to be in when they're holding their phone. Are they all using the same phone? Are they in their car? Are they around kids who are screaming in the back seat? Are they in a club and they have no sound on their phone? Think about the situation and think about the humans who are going to be using it. Is English their first language? Do your icons only relate in North America? Think about the context of the people who are going to be using the application. And that's the core of user-centered design. Okay, that's enough. Let's actually build something. Okay. Is everyone comfortable so far? Any questions yet? Who thinks they can draw? You're all wrong. No, draw. All right. So everyone has stuff in front of them, graph paper, stickies. All right, so this is where the fun happens. You are going to wireframe an application. You are going to pick one of these applications. So I'll go through them. We have Bait Plus. This app is either web or mobile, your choice, and it is a random polarizing topic generator to assist in starting online debates. The only requirements you have are it pre-generates hashtags, it passive-aggressive tone setting, and it generates tweets for you if you like. Other than that, the world is yours. Then we have geriatrics, which is Siri for IT support. So every time your parent is going to call you, they use this application because their computer's broken, or their email exploded their Facebook, or some ridiculous excuse they have for their computer being broken. Now they can just use this. The only requirements are they have a voice prompt that they can customize to be your name, so instead of Siri, it's Michael, my computer's broken. It is preloaded with problems and solutions, things like, is your computer on? Did you put a sandwich in your CD drive? Remote access to restart a PC, because at the end of the day, you should have a fuck it button, and it just restarts the computer, because that's probably what's wrong anyway. And then we have road rate, which is just upvoting and downvoting other drivers, because we all know we're great drivers, and everyone else on the road is a psycho. This app has access to and displays the closest 5 vehicles and no more. However that's displayed is up to you. Is it license plate? Is it color of the car? Is it the guy behind the wheel? Is it that funky mustache he's got? Like, decide however you want. And you have actions for only uploading and downvoting. This is a car application, don't get too crazy, it has to be safe. And it displays your driver rating and an ability for you to change that in whatever way you feel necessary. So the first thing you're going to do before you start sketching out ideas for this is you're going to brainstorm the main elements of this application that you've decided to build, and I'll go back to the thing so you can refer to it, on some stickies. We're going to do a little bit of card sorting, and the idea is you're going to have things on there like, should it have a sign-in screen? Should it have an ability to put in my settings? Should I be able to set up my parents' application? I say what model computer they have, these sorts of things. Come up with the big ideas and put them on stickies, and then we'll rearrange them after to make sense. And I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. You can work with each other, you can work by yourselves. It's totally up to you.
I think so. We'll do it live.
Okay, questions or anything?
So what I like the main
And then you help. So which one are you doing? Somewhere. Alright. So okay, totally make it. But what are some elements of it that you would picture? Picture like Alright, yeah. So say you have a registration. But assume that after you've registered, you're joining the already existing group. And pretty much everyone else. They're very fun. Are we assuming that you can go? And then, so what would somebody be assuming that, like, I would get and drive? The way that I would think about it is, like, things that you need to do based on, like,
Would you like to generate your own elements and then like have an area for them to like type
or
into?
picture, but it is small wheels. That's what definitely has.
I feel like you want like if you like generate hashes and you like did the tweet to be like over that topic, you like maybe again like get different ones and regenerate different ones.
No, this is purely just text. So it's just like to bring up all of the big areas of the site that you'll later kind of figure out how to do based on. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'm so scared.
Like an area to make sure.
Everyone always wants to do road race. It's gonna happen. Someone will make it. It'll be like 4 screens of like signing contracts, being like, I'm not using this while I'm driving. I swear I'm only a passenger.
Yeah.
There was an idea that one of the guys had when I did it in local, and he was like, "What if we like hook this up with people's insurance companies?" And I was like, "Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Oh, you have a lot of bad ratings." Alright, so if you're far enough along, you don't have to get super crazy with this. You'll start building out more detail the further you go. So if you haven't already, start grouping your stickies together, or if you have them on one sticky, maybe make some links between them where things in an interface may need to exist together, things that just make sense to group. So I'll give you a couple seconds to do that.
Or generate tweets. So it is your
Alright, so once you have your rough idea of how these things will be organized together in your UI, what you're going to do is you're going to take your graph paper and sketch out a few frames of the UI that you're going to do. The idea behind this is if you're doing a mobile app, do a bunch of long rectangles or whatever orientation you're going to do for your app, and make a few frames for yourself. The reason you're going to do this is you're going to do multiple ideas for the same UI within a frame. And make it however many you're comfortable doing. You want to do 2, 4, it doesn't matter. But make sure you're drawing more than one. The idea here is you're going to throw away your ideas. And at one point during this, you're also going to pitch to other people and see what they think of your different ideas. And you're going to take pieces of each of those, and you're going to make one UI at the end of that. So go ahead and sketch a few of your frames on your graph paper. If you're curious how big they should be, make them as small as you are comfortable with. Do not fill your page.
My frames are starting to get smaller.
then what you're going to do is you're going to do, let's say for example, your home screen, and you're going to do multiple versions of that. So using your stickies, make sure you're capturing the stickies. Whatever it is here, I don't know why I'm supposed to say this here. And that's like, wait. Try it 2 more times. The same one. Don't just stick with your favorite idea that you came up with. One thing that's just the slider until the other thing. And then this one wasn't if you find you're giving yourself enough space to write words, draw smaller.
I guess they're gonna see like hashtags.
Two.
These days I'm going to see one of these things built. It's going to be really funny.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be life-changing.
I'll like tweet back to like board Elon Musk and I'll be like, you're welcome. I got your free work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
It's really interesting doing it with one hand.
You need like a selfie stand.
Yeah, I do. Attach it to my forehead.
Yeah, right. Like a GoPro for your phone. Alright, another couple minutes, and then we're going to present some of these.
And then, yeah, I guess both of them.
For anyone who is struggling with ideas for how to draw interface elements without using words, this is how you do copy, and this is how you do headers. Your copy will change, your headers will change, the words will change in your UI, but as long as you're leaving room for it, you're fine.
Favorite part of design? Naming things.
Favorite part of design?
Naming things.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's why squiggles are so good. Like this.
Squiggle.
Squiggle. Yes. Here, I'll laser pointer. I'm so excited this has a laser pointer. Yeah.
They are. You go to should be here. And we can judge for
Wait, what is this?
it's a header.
Oh, oh, really? Did it work?
Yeah. Okay, so we have our meeting here.
Like, you can't cheat by going forward.
Alright, so now that you've had a few minutes to draw some ideas, I want you to group up with the people that are near you and maybe people you haven't talked to yet and present some of your ideas. So take turns presenting your ideas, walk them through your application, show them what each of the behaviors will be, and then get some feedback from them. If you can, write down the feedback even on your wireframes, and what you're going to do is take a minute after and see if you can modify your wireframes.
No pressure.
Generated show up here. And then you have and then and scale there. So it's really close to you have to. And it shows their profile and everything, and you can see the squares and transfers. Like when you get off the road, it's gonna be like a little bit of pop-up thing, like why did that one? Okay, like red totally
It always goes really quickly? Yeah. Well, because it's fun. That's why.
It is, but I always want to like not pressure time, like time.
Yeah.
Alright, wireframe is supposed to be really quick, and people are like, but it's not pretty.
Oh.
It's fine.
Yeah, look at mine, dear Lord.
You're gonna present
It's
it.
fine.
Go present it.
But I don't know if people want to be Facebook Live.
That's fair.
Do you want me
Present it to me if you want. Here, pretend like you're presenting it to me. I'm gonna be a critical client.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
So-
but like my wife really likes purple.
Oh
I don't
no,
see
there's no purple.
anywhere.
Well, that's all right because this is just supposed to get the idea out there and show you an idea of the flow. So here we have a sign-in screen, and I made the sign up really small. Probably should make that better, but just left it for now. So if they sign up, it asks them basically like general questions: what's your name, what type of car. These are a couple different ideas on how you could say what type of car you have, either most common car types kind of listed out, and then maybe we have a search with the icons. But then I started thinking, well, that just having the icons there and just the way that this is being listed doesn't seem that user friendly.
Okay.
Takes up a lot of space and stuff. So thought about just having a search and common ones listed down here, and then if you start entering something in the search, it'll filter it.
I like it.
So then from there, give them the option to be able to rate themselves.
How do you think you? Oh
like
no.
so they kind of like a benchmark of where they think they belong.
That'd be terrible. Like people are just like, your perception of yourself as a driver just keeps going down every week.
And so once they've done that, then they have their profile created, it's done. Then there's this screen here where they need to allow if they want to be...
permission on the phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was thinking, like, maybe we shouldn't even give them the no, because you can't even use the app without that.
Yeah.
So then from there was 2 different views for seeing the people that are around you, kind of like Uber has, where there's the different cars.
Okay.
And you could click on these or touch these different nodes of where these other cars are and see what their rating is.
Okay.
Or you could go into the list view, which just basically lists the people that are around you, the car type, and their rating currently.
Okay.
And then clicking into that will give you their profile, and you can rate them from there.
Okay.
What's your feedback?
Just like, I love this idea so much. I really want someone to build it. It's so ridiculous.
We're gonna do it.
So bad.
I hope to see it as one of the hacks today. And
That would
then,
be amazing. Can you imagine if someone decides to just change their hack and they're like, I'm doing it, I'm making this.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Or even if someone from that's watching this video makes this, we want to see. We want to see it. So then also your reasoning why. But I'll let you get back. Like, that's my pitch.
I like it.
Thanks.
You know what would be cool? If you did like, you had like the color gradient. Yeah. Oh my god. Orange. Whatever. We liked all the colors. Perfect. There you go. Perfect developers. You're all hired.
We're a web app consultancy in Waterloo, so enterprise level companies that have an in-house team who need a new application built or their legacy app needs to be refactored so that they can add something onto it. We kind of combine extension or something. We have PHP specialists and user experience designers that kind of come in and form like
I think it's funny
a
that
squad that on top of the
it wasn't a requirement. You didn't have to. That's true.
Yeah. So you know like what topic it's going to be. You don't know what this is very good. Yeah. Make sure it goes. Alright, so you guys got the basic idea of pitching and probably got a little bit of feedback unless yours was perfect, which is awesome. And what happens next is you basically either toss your ideas completely, which is very cathartic, and start all over based on what you did previously with some feedback and those sorts of things. Or you move forward and you get maybe a little bit more fidelity, or you start moving into code and that sort of thing. So the types of wireframes that I work with and that you'll typically see in this realm of product design and that sort of thing. So this is what one of my whiteboards will look like. This is not like 10 minutes of work. This is usually about a week or 2 of work of going through what different possibilities will look like. So I talked about different options for one interface. This is one interface. This is one interface. And the red is what I use to identify the difference in each of these. So basically moving through it, you have the same sidebar, the same header, but this is what changes. How you move through looking at a category, like maybe it's an expandable area, maybe it's already expanded, that sort of thing. This is as much detail as you need when you really need buy-in from a client or you need to really explain something to a developer, and I'll get into this in a little bit. You'll also see things like stickies, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is kind of my work environment. I blast stuff out on stickies, throw them away, make new ones, throw those away too, and then once I like it, I'll put it on graph paper, because graph paper's got these nice squares that are fun to work with. But the idea is it's messy, it's dirty, it's mostly just meant for me. It's just to brain dump a bunch of ideas and get in the habit of not marrying any idea. The trouble with wireframing and that sort of thing is getting stuck on one idea and not knowing how to sort of clear your brain's cache and just keep going, that sort of thing. Then you'll start getting into low fidelity graph paper wireframes, which is probably the thing that I use the most. I like using a different colored pen. I don't know if everybody can actually see this, but like the idea is you have like very basic UI elements and then you have a different colored pen that annotates each of the things. That way you don't have to worry too much about focusing on what each of those is called in the interface or naming them and that sort of thing. And then writing out like, here's what this actually means, just in case someone's looking at it and not used to looking at wireframes. This is a high fidelity paper wireframe. If you're doing this, you're spending too much time on wireframing. in my opinion. This is starting to get into, you really need buy-in from somebody, and they need to see what their investment may look like into this, whether it's time, effort, teammates, money, whatever. This is starting to get into the realm of you really need to justify this. And there's some things you can print off. This is actually a printed off. So these frames are, you can print these off and work within these. They're kind of handy for stuff like that, but once you're starting to get it, like I use shade markers because it's fancy and it's kind of fun, but it's really not adding that much to it. And then you get into software. Software is handy because you can do interactions with them. You can do some slight animations. This is Balsamic. This is probably one of the most popular wireframing pieces of software. There is a free version of it, I think, or a trial or something. It's drag and drop. You don't have to draw anything. All of your elements exist in this, and you can just drag them in there. It shows you common design patterns for things, and you can toggle between them. It'll have like an active state, inactive state, stuff like that. It's pretty handy. And then you're getting into high fidelity software. This is where you start to blur the lines between wireframing and prototyping. Prototyping is you have interactions. You move through an application. You click on something, something happens. You get real feedback from your system, that's mocked out and that sort of thing. So the uses for wireframing. This is a good way of thinking about how much detail you should have in your wireframes. From low fidelity all the way up to high. Low fidelity, pretty sloppy, probably not annotated, like my stickies. It's meant for me. It's just meant for me to get ideas out on a piece of paper and churn through a bunch of them very quickly. You start getting a little bit higher fidelity, that's for you and or your design team or your development team. The people you're working with probably know you. You have a rapport with them. They are used to seeing your drawings and that sort of thing. You don't need to get too crazy with it, but they do need to know what you're talking about. The higher you go, you need to bring in external team members. Maybe this is someone who's working remote. Maybe it's a client you have good rapport with, but they also need to see some annotations, a little bit of detail. They need to be able to read it. And the higher the fidelity you go, that's where you start talking about people who are writing checks. If someone's writing a check, and that's the difference between this project going forward and not, and they need to see wireframes, you're probably going to do pretty high fidelity. It's going to be very pretty. All right, so the software you can access to do this, just in case you just really don't want to do drawing and that sort of thing, which is fine. There's a whole bunch of them. Balsamic I like the best. Sketch is also very popular, and then you're starting to get into some other fringe ones. And there's one that I didn't put on here that's also, and you can look these up if you feel like it. There's one that I didn't put on here that's actually pretty cool, and I meant to look it up. Kathleen, you might know what this is. The idea of it is you have interfaces that you draw, and you take a picture of them with this application, and it puts them into something that you can interact with, sort of like InVision, where you have hand-drawn interfaces on like wireframe, and then you can draw active areas, and it'll give you a behavior you're allowed to do. If I click on this area of my wireframe, it'll take me to this area of this other wireframe. You can do scrolling effects, you can do swipes. It's actually really cool. Super vague, I probably should have looked it up. But it's really handy, especially if you're doing this type of stuff and you want a little bit more interaction, because you want to think about like, yeah, I like all the interfaces, but how do I move between them? Totally relevant question. That's it. Any questions or clarifying comments I can make? How many people think they can draw now? Yay! Like one more.